Dad, hold on.
Whoa.
I forgot I still had that on here. Where's that?
Wow, yeah, I
There we
was
go.
like, wow, that's going way back.
Okay, take two.
Dice are rolling from this falls inside the GM studio source. Tabletop games when nightmares meet in a realm with sanity is lost and weak. Welcome to the abyss, retreat shadow inside the GM studio. Obsidian manners, blood and chaos, and time drives unfold in the realm of role-playing where legends are told.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Inside the GM Studio, a podcast all about the tabletop role-playing game hobby. I'm going to keep going with it, mostly for the game masters, but you players out there, we love to hear from you as well. We hope that you like to hear from us. I'm your host, Matt,
And I am David.
and oh boy, the boys are back. D&D's back. Beto's back.
Welcome
felt good.
back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Sorry.
It felt good after, as well as Thursday, we had another session of Triangle Agency with my Thursday group. This time, it was almost flip-flopped. I was the only one that was still there for the last one. The other two guys that started with us couldn't make it, but then two of the other guys that couldn't make it before joined in, and at the end, they were like, "That was fun." And I was like, "Yeah, it's a fun game." They were like, "Yeah, I didn't expect it to be fun like that, but it still felt hollow, like I'm missing something from it." And the games that we play are only like maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours at a time, and they are the full mission. Like, it's great for a night to go, you're just sitting there and you have nothing to do. And because the roles, there's only two real roles and everything else, it is a board game. It's a role-playing board game is what it is. All of the mechanics are narrative. You just have two simple roles. And that's about it, really. As long as you can remember your narrative stuff, if you have little cards that shows what your ability or your powers are, and then the rest of your narrative stuff, that's all you really need. It's a very, very simple game with really crazy extra mechanics used it that I love it now because everyone is just like, we had a really good time. We laughed a lot. But other than that, when it comes to like a game, it was lacking. It's still lacking and everybody can feel it and they don't know how they should feel about it.
Collaborative storytelling grab ass is what it sounds like.
It's exactly what it is.
And so, playing, some fantasy sort of grab ass is fun, but then you're kind of like, was it a game? What did we accomplish? I don't know. Like,
yeah, as we got our commendations and our demerits, because if the boss at the agency doesn't like you, you get demerits. The better you do, the more commendations you get for promotions. But do I feel differently about Triangle Agency now? No, I still don't like it as a game. As a party game for like a nighter, every now and then, it's great. It's fantastic. But as like something that you want to continue to do every week, no, I don't think so. There's
it sounds like The Matrix meets Dilbert is what it sounds like to me.
It is. That's very much how it is. And it's a great time when you're all just making each other laugh, but there's nothing to grab onto. There's nothing to work with. There's nothing to game in it. I want to be able to move some numbers around, or I want to make, something to how I want my character to be, as well as how it manipulates the world around him. And it's just really difficult to do when there's no real mechanics that let you do that.
Yeah.
It is. It's a great night game. If you're drinking, you feel like, hey, let's play a little bit of Triangle Agency. Oh, sweet. Yeah, okay. Have some good chuckles later, and then you just put it away until next year. I think that's the best.
I could see that because it's just a game that is conducive to just kind of horsing around a little bit. So,
But then we had D&D return on Saturday. It did feel good. It felt good to be back. How'd you feel about it, David?
it took me a minute to kind of settle in, and even to really kind of there was some like details that I had kind of left out. I was like, wait, yeah, was the whole party with you, Matt? I don't really remember. Um, but we started with kind of a atypical kind of loose form skill challenge, which was a way to kind of thrust the party. This is what happens is even after like 5 or however many months it's been since we played, when you end on a banger cliffhanger, and not all of the ends of my sessions or even quests adventures are real bangers, but we did end on a pretty good one last time. And it means that we, after a long hiatus, we had really just dove right back into some action and got the players involved. Like once we got oriented to kind of like, oh yeah, this is what's going on. So I liked that. I felt a little bit like my descriptions were a little aimless at times, and as a result, probably a little long-winded sometimes.
I was going to bring that up to see if that's how you felt, because there was a few times that I could hear you just like throwing some extra lines into it, and almost making it like you were making like a layer cake of how the character might have felt at that time. And I was like, he's reaching.
Maybe a little bit. Here's the thing, though, is when you have, I perhaps maybe overcorrected. When a lot of times when you don't play for a while, you come back and the players are like, "Oh, I'm really happy to be back," but then they just kind of plop down and they go like, basically, entertain me. And you're like, dude, you're not involving yourself in the game very much. You're just kind of sitting there waiting for it to happen to you, as if it's. This ties into our topic tonight, I think. But I was probably a little dodgy about that. I didn't really. It didn't feel as bad as I was anticipating it. I guess I had some trouble with the cliffhanger that we left off on and linking it to the next big plot point. I didn't pace that out super well because I wasn't anticipating that you would necessarily do the thing where you're like going back to your manor, then going back to the guy's hunting lodge to talk to him, then stopping off at Mike's family's house. That's like a lot of travel, and I was trying to like, look, I don't want to compress it all like super, but I also kind of want to like you could spend 2 sessions entirely just doing that shit
Oh yeah.
very easily. I didn't want to do that. I want to throw the players back into the meat of the plot, because we're getting to a point where it's starting to kind of escalate, and I want that tension and everything to stay palpable. And so if there was something I struggled with, I think it was probably bridging that gap for a couple of unanticipated motives that the PCs had. So
Yeah, I could see that. I caught up on. I haven't watched the last. Let's see, what was it? I think it was episode 5, 4. Maybe it was 4 and 5 of the new Critical Role campaign, and I was waiting to see what was going to happen. And this kind of makes me. This also makes me think of our main topic today, and this is why I bring it up. When they first came out and they said that they were doing a West Marches style game, I was like, ooh, this is interesting. I can't wait to see how they do this and how that they introduce West Marches style to the masses that probably have no idea what this is.
explain it to everybody that doesn't know.
Well, I will in just a minute, because I'm going to use the way that they did it. So when they started, what they did was they made it very dramatic in the way that Brennan Lee Mulligan, who I will say is probably my favorite live streaming GM out there. I think he does wonderful work. He would have it so that only 3 or 4 people were at the table at a time. And as soon as he was done with their scene, he'd ask them to leave, and then other people would come in and do another scene. And at first, I thought, this is bad. This is not West Marches, where West Marches is multiple tables of multiple full tables of with different GMs in the same world at the same time. What the other table does will impact all the other tables in the world. So that's how West Marches work. Multiple GMs with multiple tables working together to make this living world come alive.
But typically the same plot and same conflict, if I understand correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yep. And sometimes, the tables they'll interact together. Like one day they'll be like, hey, is it okay if we come and, especially with VTTs and all that, like, hey, can we come and sit on your game, at your table tonight? I got a couple players that are in the area and would like to work with you guys. They can work it out with the GM. If they say no, then the other GM has to be like, okay, no problem. You're gonna have to find a way to not do that. But the way Brennan was doing it was, like I said, it was almost like it was supposed to be like a TV show, and scenes were changing, and people were coming in and leaving the table, and other people were coming in. I was like, this is bad. This is not a good way to show people what West March's style is. This is what they're gonna think it is, and it made me think. Critical Role, a lot of people, they don't think about this. When they see it, they think this is what D&D is. When, first of all, Critical Role is a performance. These guys are professional actors, professional voice actors. Some other people are improv comedians, professional improv comedians. This is what they do. They perform, and that's what they've made. It is still a game. It's non-scripted, except for whatever the GM creates. And however the players go through it, that's how the story goes through. That's true in the D&D fashion. But don't think, people out there, that you could get away with this all the time. Having people leave the room constantly and then having come back and swapping. It makes for a good effect. Sometimes when the GM's was like, hey, come on in the hall with me. Again, I want to talk to you a little bit. So you give some some secrets or whatever. But this made me feel like this is bad. This is not good. A lot of people are going to have, the wrong idea of what West March's style is. And I hope that they don't try to just take this and emulate it at home. But now, as I watched I think it was episode 4, at the end of episode 4, Brennan said the tables have been set. And it was all these groups. Now they are together and they all have their own, they're all focused together on one object. So now it is an actual West March style. Like, he has these different tables that some weeks it'll be focused on just one of the tables, while other weeks it'll be focused on the others. And bringing that up, it makes it always brings it back to that, where a lot of people these days, they see live streaming D&D, Acquisitions Incorporated, Dimension 20, Critical Role, and they want to emulate these because they get a lot of enjoyment on them, because they are a performance. These people are up there performing to make sure that people watching them are having fun. And sometimes, not everybody, but sometimes I will see on forums and everything that people want, just like, I want my game master to be Matt Mercer, or I want to be Matt Mercer. And that's a bad thing to think.
Yeah.
It's one of the big myths of GMs, especially these days, that the game master should be a Brennan Lee Mulligan, a Matt Mercer, so what? Or just, name another one that you want to. That's one of the big myths that I've been thinking about recently. And when David brought up this topic last week, I thought it was a very good topic to bring in, talking about the myths of what makes a good game master, as well as some of the tools that we use these days. I will say the tools that I use these days are much different than I used from even like 5 years ago. So I thought we could talk about those a little bit, for if anybody out there is new or you've never thought about using GM tools. Maybe there's a little something that we can come up with and help you guys out. But I thought we could start with the myths at least. And David, you want to start us off with any myths that you are aware of?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the one that you'd mentioned, mostly because I don't watch a lot of live plays.
Hmm.
So I don't have that kind of, I don't know. It's a sort of sickness, you know? It's like if you watch too much porn, you expect your girlfriend to behave like Sasha Grey in the bedroom, and
Yeah.
that's not reasonable, you know? Like this is a freak of nature, basically. Like that's why they're streaming their D&D games because they're just, you know, a lot of them are involved in like designing the mechanics and or the games and writing campaigns like professionally. Like holding yourself to that standard is ludicrous.
Yeah.
Most of the things that I came up with are a little bit more fundamental than that.
Mm.
Um, I don't know how much of a myth it is anymore, um, but I think it always bears repeating that the whole notion that the GM and the PCs are at odds is I'm never gonna get tired. Like even as recently as like early fifth edition, when they were trying to get people to remember when like what was it, the Adventures League, or I think it
Hmm.
was Adventures League,
Hmm.
and they were trying to recruit people for running games in your local shops. And even their ad campaign was like, you know, if you're going to be involved with a fight with a bunch of heroes and a black dragon, wouldn't you rather be the black dragon? And it's like cool ad campaign, but it still just frames this kind of adversarial relationship between players and GMs. I don't.
Hmm.
If anything, I would say modern GMing is probably a little too far in the other direction, but I guess ultimately I just don't see that as much of is to be as much of a problem as this whole adversarial mindset that a lot of OSR gamers have.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Do you encounter that at all anymore?
Oh yeah, but it's not from new players.
Mm,
New players these days, they don't even realize, or they've never even heard of that.
mm,
People that I know of that have been playing for a long time, every now and then they, even if they don't mean to, they'll just have that adversary. Is that how you say it? Adversary,
adversarial. Yeah.
adversarial
Hmm.
of GM and player. Um,
Yeah.
they don't mean to happen, but for some reason it just. I've been playing so long, and it was drilled into me so much that I just think you're out to get me sort of mentality.
Yeah. I mean, and don't get me wrong. The other side is um the other side is also just kind of a myth, which is that you're there to be a collaborator. You're there to, you know, be. It's like no, you're not that either. Like at least you shouldn't be that. You shouldn't be there to be on the PC's sides per
Hmm.
se. Like not in a. You're closer to a judge in a courtroom, right? Where you maintain order, you know, you rule on the things that might whatever, you try to be fair, you try to be reasonable, but you allow an equitable playing field for, you know, the defense and the prosecution alike and try to, you know, play to giving the jury the relevant information that they need.
Hmm.
That's closer to your role. And so any I wouldn't know what popular sentiment is anymore. I came up more with the GMs versus the PCs, but I have seen it in recent years where I talk to some people and it's almost like their GMs are just so cuddly. They literally couldn't imagine a scenario where their character would be like in danger. Like I remember mentioning to somebody that I was like, "Oh yeah, like I TPK'd my party again on accident the other night." And someone was like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Killed the party." And they're like, "Oh, like you're one of those GMs that just like likes to kill your party." And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Well, how frequently do characters die in your campaign?" And they literally were like, "No character in any of the campaigns that I've ever played in has ever died." I'm like, "So what do you guys do? You guys just hang out at the tavern all day and like like listen to bards and like, you know, get wenches and drink wine? Like don't you go on adventures that are full of danger and shit?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, but it's just, you know." I'm like, "No, I don't know. I just
But
I don't know what that
you know,
is." And so but I don't know how common that is. So um But either one, I would say, if you believe that that's the role is to kill the players and be adversarial toward them, or to be their buddy and to be in their corners and try to save them from any danger. Um, in my estimation, a good GM doesn't do either of those all of the time. You might try to do some of them some of the time. Like when it's challenging, you should go play to the best of your capabilities. You know, end of an adventure, end of a campaign is certainly you got the big bad. Like you probably should be trying really hard to kill the players. Like
Mm.
don't pull any punches. Villains that pull punches are boring. And so you should try your utmost because the players should be trying their utmost at that point. Um, and yeah, there's sometimes you're gonna let players skate and you're gonna let them slide by with one every now and again, but they ought to know that they got away with one, right? They're like, okay, oh, that was close, right? Yeah. I feel like maybe that guy didn't do 7 points of damage to me. He might have did like, 9 points of damage to me. Dave just knows that I got like 8 hit points left, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel like I got away with one there. Like it's like yeah, you might have, but you should always be questioning it, and you should if you feel like you got away with one, then you're gonna you're not gonna ever take it for granted. Like the second
yeah.
your players start taking shit for granted, is when you go, yeah, you're being too soft on them, and the second they're paralyzed with fear to do anything, or they're trying to like fucking becoming hostile to seemingly innocuous NPCs and shit, then you know you're being a little too hostile toward them. Maybe lighten up a little bit. So
Mm. I had on one of mine. I was looking up some myths earlier, and one I found was the myth of a good game master is an impartial adjudicator of the rules who should never fudge or adjust in the player's favor. Because I thought that it was going to come up the GM bad guy, and we are against each other. I've done both, actually. I will admit that I have sat there behind my screen with hit points written down, and at one point the bad guy has 90 hit points left, and everybody else is down to like maybe the fighter has like 20 hit points left. I'm just like, let's just let's turn that 90 into a 60 or something, give them a more of a chance. And there's also been times that I've had players that have been like, he's been like, they've straight up told me, they're like, these encounters are getting a little easy. So I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. It's just like, yeah, just a little more, anything would make it a little bit better. Just give us something to work with. I'm like, yeah, sure, okay. Go from 90 hit points to 200. How about that, dude? We'll add a legendary action. Sure, there we go.
it's
But that is one that I found as well. That I think the one that does, like the impartial adjudicator, is that the GM does nothing to change anything to unbalance the sides, I guess is what I'm trying to
right.
say.
Fair, but I would argue that they can do that,
Hmm.
but they should remain impartial, which
Oh
is
yeah.
to say they shouldn't have an invested interest or care whether the PCs succeed or
Hmm.
fail. Um, they should try very hard not to do that. It's always difficult because if you kill everyone, then all of your hard work and your fun comes to an end too.
Hmm.
Um, this is part of the reason I started designing adventures to be a little more challenging with the encounters because I realized what I am comfortable with. I am comfortable fudging things ever so slightly, like
Yeah.
razor thin. I will fudge shit if it's a difference between, like I said, it's like, okay, here's a fireball that's going to hit 4 of the 5 PCs. And those 4 of the 5 PCs have 25 or fewer hit points.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, if I make this fireball, like if I roll this fireball's damage and it's 32, and even if they save, they're more like half of them are down. But if it's like 22, then even if they all fail, they're still on the feet technically for one more round,
Yep.
right? I might do something like that. Um, so I might fudge it slightly there, razor thin. So I'm comfortable doing that, but so I'm comfortable kind of like going easy on the players, occasionally, but I am never comfortable making something more difficult just because the PCs are doing well, right? Like a
Hmm.
monster is supposed to be hard, and it's not hard, and I just go like, he's got like 40 hit points more than I said he did initially. It's like I don't like to fudge stuff like that because it erodes. I think it erodes the player's trust in you, where they feel like you're just manipulating everything for narrative purposes.
Mhm.
But it's less of an issue if you have like a dungeon crawl that's got like 10 encounters in it, and 8 of them are hard or deadly. Even if some of them are kind of a breeze, the players aren't getting off scot-free. You don't need to fudge those ones that they do well on to like make them hard, because well, the next one's going to be pretty fucking hard, and eventually you have to assume any given encounter over a long arc plays to what its difficulty is. Some
Mhm.
easy encounters are going to end up being more difficult, but if you have 10 easy encounters, the average encounter difficulty is eventually going to be easy. And if you have 10 deadly, it'll eventually be deadly and hard and medium and so forth. So some are going to be more, some are going to be less, but if you just chock full your dungeons full of like deadly and hard encounters, then eventually, even if some of them are a breeze. So I realize that about myself, that I don't like to fudge it to make things to nerf the monsters, but I'll do it
Mhm.
to kind of like, or to make the monsters more difficult, but I'll do it to kind of help the players out a little bit. And
Yeah,
so,
like I said earlier, I made it, cut it down his hit points just by a little bit to give them an extra round, pretty much. Give
mhm.
them a chance. If they don't make it, they don't make it, but I'm going to give them, an extra round just to give them a chance.
Yeah, that's probably even a little bit farther than I typically go. Like I said, it'll be a difference of like 1 or 2 points if I know a character has 8 hit points left and the monster does 10, and I just say he does 7, instead or whatever. Like I'll do stuff like that occasionally, um, especially if I feel like it's just a spate of bad rolls. Like sometimes the GM gets hot when the players get cold. Sometimes you're both throwing rocks, and sometimes it's just like a slugfest, and sometimes it's just nobody can do anything. But then sometimes it's like you get really hot, and like every other roll is a crit, and your players can't hit the broadside of a fucking barn with a goddamn
Yeah,
ballista. You're like, what the
been
fuck,
there.
dude? And so, uh, I think they deserve a little bit of a break there. So anyway, uh, yeah, that's a good one though. So kind of on a similar front, like this whole notion that GMs need to kind of know every single rule up and down,
Yep.
to me is just like, this is what you have a book for reference for. You should know the basic rules and kind of how things operate. You should know the basic rules for spell casting. You should know the basic rules for combat and opportunity attacks, movement, stuff like that. Things that are easy enough to understand, when people can take reactions, under what conditions they can do that, economy of action, so forth. But knowing every spell descriptions, whatever, knowing
Yeah.
every minor kind of
Your level
class.
13 monk class attribute, your
Right,
subclass
right.
ability.
No, you don't need to do this. What the players are for, right?
Mm.
Like, what the players are for, and it's like, don't get me wrong, don't trust your players to interpret the rules. I'm not saying that. Do not trust your. Listen to me. If you're a GM, if you're a new GM, do not trust your players to interpret the rules. Don't. Read them yourself. If you
Hmm.
don't know them, that is fine. It is fine that you don't know it coming in, but read it. Don't ask the player what it says. Tell them to show you the text. Click on it in the VTT. Read it in the book. Do it. Internalize it. Know it. Love it. But don't rely on them. I'm not saying that, right? Because they'll basically, it's like, I get like, no, it's not. I don't want to know basically what it does. This isn't fucking Barbarians of Lemuria, right? Like,
Hmm.
this is D&D. Like, I need to specifically know what it does. And uh but the whole notion that you need to kind of be some sort of bureaucratic bookkeeper and understand every goddamn nuanced rule and all the appendices and the gods and their alternate names and the fucking universes and shit is ludicrous to me, and that seems to me more like it also seems to me kind of like a dying sentiment. Almost, it may have even gone so far in the other direction, where I've had some people that have complained to me about, like, my GM doesn't know the rules even as well as I do, and that's weird. They don't know shit, but they're always arguing with me and acting like they're like an authority on it. It's like, okay, if you're gonna be the kind of GM that's like, I make the rule. I decide. Then you
Right.
do have to know every rule. Like if you're going to be an iron-fisted kind of tyrant about it, then with that comes the expectation that if you are the absolute authority, then the absolute authority should be this omniscient adjudicator of the rules, and
Yeah, that
that.
rule number 0, the GM makes the rules.
Mhm. It's like, okay, how did that get to be a rule? If it says so in the book that I make the rules. It's like, did you write the fucking book? I don't think you did. So you don't make the rules, do you?
um, I got one
Yeah.
that, as well as the game master should know every single rule. The game master should also make sure that it's the game master's job to ensure that all the players at the table have fun.
I That's not possible because you're not responsible
Yeah.
for other people's feelings, and you're not responsible for their fun, especially because players could have contra indicated types of fun. So what are you supposed to do?
hmm I think this is the one that I've heard, but I have never heard anybody actually say. It's
Mm-hmm.
known that like people have always, but everybody's always against it. They're just like GMs aren't supposed to be the ones that make it fun. It's a group effort and blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, I don't know where this came from and why it's still so prevalent, but
It's
because it doesn't seem like anybody actually agrees with it anymore.
here's where I probably would guess the genesis of that notion is. It is the GM's job to ensure that everybody is capable of having fun,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is not your job to make anyone have fun. And you don't know what will make some, but you have to allow space for all of your players. This is part of your role because, especially if you have at least a halfway decent sized D&D group, you get more than 3 people in a fucking room, and there's going to be some sort of social dynamics between them. Just like in the game, your job is to manage the table and to ensure that one player is not talking over another, running their character for them, or deriding them in the game that makes them feel like whatever, teasing them about not knowing the rules. Part of your job is to kind of make space for those people. Part of your job is to give pushback against players that might be bullies. Part of your job is to try to get quieter, shyer players to come out of their shells and be more involved. That all starts with setting the expectations for what kind of game you're running, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of this is what a session 0 is, and I'm happy to see that it seems to be kind of the boilerplate, run of the mill standard now that people run a session 0.
Yep.
And that's really good because you need to be on the same page. But it's the GM's job to make sure that everybody has fun. Not necessarily, because if you want to run a certain style of game and the other players want a certain dynamic among them, and that doesn't fit with you, it is not incumbent upon the GM to accommodate you. If you can either assimilate into that style of play and that type of game and that type of dynamic, um, then yeah, it's good. He needs to make space. There needs to be flexibility. But imagine it wasn't the actual game and the fun. It was the time, right? It's the GM's job to accommodate everybody's schedule. It's like, no, it isn't. You agree upon a schedule
Yeah.
together, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
go, okay, this is the time. If you can't make it, Matt, well, you're the odd guy out. Everybody else seems to be able to make it. This is the only day that works for 5 out of 6 of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't make it that time, then it's not my job to make sure that everybody can make it, right?
Yeah.
How could I do that? I'd have to run your life in order to make that possible. So, yeah, I'm with you. I would think that probably in modern games, that's probably a little bit more of a. Actually, I would have really thought that probably that sentiment was more prevalent than you're telling me. It sounds as though maybe people people understand how weird that is to have that
Yeah,
expectation.
maybe
But
it's just
maybe
me, and like when the people that I talk to in person about it, and like I don't think I've ever actually seen anybody complain like on forums or anything, especially on Reddit where people complain about fucking everything.
mm,
I could see this back, probably about a good 15 years ago, maybe even longer, maybe more like 20 years ago, actually. Uh,
but now that I give it a second thought, it is consistent with the whole idea that the game is collaborative. That the
Mm-hmm.
GM is not the GM is not in charge. He's not in the driver's seat of the semi of the game, right? That's
Yeah.
an old school way of thinking about it. If you really think about it as being collaborative, then you really think about like, well, no, I bring my own fun to the table, and the GM is there to facilitate that, for lack of
Yeah.
a better word. So no, it's not his or her job. His. I don't know. I've never met a lady GM. If you're, oh no, Rebecca's a lady GM.
Yeah.
Boom,
There you
facial.
go.
Good job, Rebecca. We've never met, but I know her at least a little bit.
Yeah.
Miss Rebecca.
No.
But in general, they're fellas. There should be more lady GMs. I feel like the games would be a little more fun. Oh no, come to think of it, now that I think about it, the gal that we played VTM with, Kavita, she
Oh, yeah,
runs
Kavita.
games all the
Mhm.
time, and from my girlfriend says she's a fantastic GM. Anyway, yeah, that's a good, that's actually a good segue into my next myth,
Okay.
which is this whole collaborative, more free form sentiment that has been kind of gaining popularity, say, since the 2014 edition of D&D, has really etched into people's brains that it's not okay to railroad your players.
Mm-hmm.
This is stupid. Of course it's okay to railroad your players. You just don't railroad them for too long or during key or really important moments of player character development and player agency. Characters that have no agency over the plot to affect it are just puppets. They're not interesting. They're not dynamic, and this plays out not just in role playing games, but in films and books and stuff. I mean, I've always gone on about this with the Deus Ex Machina. Like the Deus Ex Machina is precisely stupid because it robs the characters of the ability to kind of save themselves, right? They should be using their wits and their ingenuity and their moxie to get out of scrapes, not because just the writer bails them out. That's really stupid. However, it is perfectly okay to do what a lot of people would call railroading, which is to mean that the plot goes in one direction to the next plot point. That is okay. Everything that's something that's like super duper sandboxy, like it's like we're railroading the players. Like there's nothing wrong with starting an entire campaign out with just one adventure hook. That's a railroad if I ever fucking heard one, right? There's nothing wrong with it being like one NPC is the only NPC that knows a particular piece of information, especially if it's arcane information. He's some old wizard, he's some guild member that knows like the shadowy secrets of some political figure. You don't need to make like 8 people and 8 paths to that information. It's okay sometimes to say like it, especially because it says something about the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
That this one character has this piece of information or has an item or whatever. That is a form of railroading. It's just, I guess maybe if you're defining railroading as from the beginning to the end, there's never any deviation, like the whole adventure, the whole campaign, chronicle, scenario, whatever you want to call it, that none of it has any agency. If that's how you want to define railroading, then yes, that's bad. But if you're just defining it as a lack of player options through a certain leg of an adventure or a quest, that's nonsense. Like you
Yeah.
have to do that to have structure to an adventure. Otherwise, the players will be running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and they won't know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah, it's like that community question that we did last week. The OSR guy that was
Yeah.
saying, "Is it wrong for me to do it like this? I've never met anybody that wants to play in a game like this, and what's wrong with it?"
Yeah, it was
Where
super
it's just like,
it was
yeah.
all sandbox.
You are all strangers in a tavern, and you hear a bunch of rumors of shit going on. Go.
Yeah, yeah. Or you wake up. What do?
Yeah.
You're awake in your home. Like, well, what am I doing? Like, what's happening? You're nothing right now. Like, what are you doing? I don't know. I got any milk in the fridge? Go look. roll milk discovery. It's like- anyway, do you got any more? I got one more.
Yeah, I
Okay.
got one. I got one here that could go along with something good here. Actually, I got this one from you because I am this guy, but David is not. He is the complete antithesis of it. Maybe not
Uh-oh.
complete, but close enough. A game master should have a fully realized and prepared game world for their players to explore before the campaign begins. I love world building, and when I do it, I go hardcore on my worlds with the lore, the deities, the lands. I am that dude that wants to create all of this first in order to have it for the players, and sometimes I'll give them the information beforehand. If you want to know about the lore, some of the history here. But I know that David,
Yeah,
he's not like that at all.
I'm not like that, and sometimes you'll notice through some patches, I think my worlds can feel a little flat. So I will say that perhaps I go a little too far on that. Some towns can seem generic. Some areas like geography can kind of seem like okay. But I also just for general purposes, I don't think the specifics really matter that
Hmm.
much. Um, like for instance, the region that you're in the camp in our D&D campaign, don't you have kind of like a rough idea of the layout, right? And where
Hmm.
things are in kind of in relation to one another, and basically about how far you are. Like when I told you how long it was going to take you to get back to Goldhaven, did you go, "Holy shit, that's going to take forever. It's not nearly as long. It's way longer than I thought." Or did you go like, "Oh, it's super close. I didn't." You probably were like, "No, that's about right, right?" Like at
Hmm.
least I would
Yep.
hope. And as a general rule, I just think that the minor details of stuff like that, especially like the history and the lore, unless it relates to the particular unless it relates to your particular campaign, the quest at hand, or informs the way some of the NPCs engage with the PCs, I don't think it really needs to be there because I don't think the PCs really care that much about it. If it's there, it's nice and it's cool and it's flavor. Um, but I guess my attitude is that I would rather just use the time that I would have dumping that exposition on the players to kind of thrust them into a scenario where I raise the stakes, throw in a complication, and get them into some sort of action.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what players want more. But I'm not saying that you don't need to have any world building. I mean, hopefully, at the very least, the campaign that we're in now, the I don't think the world feels very rich in history. It kind of feels like generic D&D world, but borrowed some things from Faerun.
Hmm.
But I like to think at least the NPCs that I've populated it with, the villain and the other NPCs, that they seem somewhat lively. And I guess I just hope that the characters have more of a connection to the NPCs than they do to the kind of texture of the world.
Yeah, also I really like playing in already established worlds like the Forgotten Realms, or of course my favorite Eberron. If I could ever play in a 40k, Warhammer 40k universe, oh my god! But that you gotta really know lore. But it always brings me back to when fifth edition was first coming out, and we ran, or I ran, or was it you? Which one of us? It was me that did Murder in Baldur's Gate.
You ran that, yes.
Yep. And I remember going through, and there was a great thing that they threw in there because of Baldur's Gate, and Minsk and Boo are known in Baldur's Gate. They're heroes of Baldur's Gate.
Hmm.
So they had a statue of them in Baldur's Gate, and I described it, of a bald man in a ranger getup with with a hamster on his shoulder, and I remember Nick going just like, it's Minsk and Boo, and that always makes me just kind of like chuckle because those small little things that you remember from even past campaigns, if you have a homebrew world, it's kind of cool to just throw back out there for people to get.
It's
Uh, just these little things. I was like, oh, that's a cool mention.
yes, those are Easter eggs, and
Yeah.
they only come out of. But I don't think you need to do super deep world building in order to have them. Like
No, 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 no.
I did this. I did that. Remember we played the campaign where it was the. Oh, maybe you weren't. maybe you weren't in that campaign. I played with Mike and Chris and I think Beto.
Hmm.
And we played our first campaign, and we played, I believe it was the Dragon of Ice Spire Peak. And they went to fight the young white dragon that lives on the on the Ice Spire Peak, whose name is Cryovane. And they got killed. Then we started another campaign, and I believe you were part of that one. That was the Sunless Citadel campaign, like the kind of Sunless Citadel Redux. And in the Sunless Citadel, there's a bunch of kobolds, and they're raising a dragon wormling. And this campaign takes place like 50 years before, and so I just made that wormling the Cryovane wormling,
Hmm.
so that the PCs could like basically kill it and like get revenge for their previous selves. Like it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
I like stuff like that too.
All right. You got anything left on your list there?
Yes, I do. I have one more.
Okay.
To round out my list, and maybe we won't even get to.
I know we might have to
tools here.
keep. We'll have to hold tools for next time.
There's this kind of modern school of thought, and we've even done an episode about it with the whole yes anding thing.
Ah,
The whole notion that like GMs need to say yes to shit, as a general, like a good GM says yes to improv. Like that's something that I've heard. It's something that I've read. It's something that's not true. Like
Yeah.
you
Actually, my
sure,
very last one was a good GM never says no. That was my
Same
last
thing.
myth. Yeah.
right. Yeah, that's so we're on the same page here. It's like
Mhm.
you don't need the GM doesn't need to say, "Oh, well, yeah, allow for improvisation." It's like because that's just a way of saying that you have no boundaries. You have um no rules or anything that like you just kind of like, "Oh, I'm open to anything." It's like, "Okay, so that it does a few things. One, it makes you look like you don't care about consistency in the game.
Mhm.
It makes it out as if rules as written don't matter, which they don't always. I'm not saying they do. I'm more of a rules as written guy than a rules as intended guy, um, but you don't want to ever just say that, oh well, the rules as written just don't matter, or that the clear intent of the rule doesn't matter. Um, so that's not good. It also could potentially disenfranchise players who aren't as likely to test the fence, aren't as likely to make a case, aren't as outspoken for why they should be able to allow to do X or Y. And I mean, this has even come up a few times where Cody is notorious for this,
Mhm.
and and Chris Davis used to be notorious for it too. And generally speaking, when I rule against them, I try to throw them like I see what you're doing and I can appreciate it, but like no dice, right? Like I mean, like I get it. Like I appreciate that you're a kind of player that tests the fence and kind of
Yeah.
is trying to think creatively, but this is a bridge too far, and I suspect it's a bridge too far. But nice try. I'll tell players that sometimes. Nice try. Like, um. So you don't want that. You don't really want any of those scenarios in your game, and as a result you need to be the kind of GM that doesn't always just encourage um open collaboration and improv, because ultimately you are the storyteller of the game. You are the one that's determining which beats and the pacing of the story. And in order to have some structure for that, you have to know when to say no, like I'm in charge of this right now. Right?
Yeah.
Like there are times when we're all going to be in charge. There are times when you're going to be in charge. I'll ask your opinion or whatever, but a boat can't go in a direction without a rudder, and that's what the GM is supposed to be.
Yep.
And if you're always just saying like let's change course because your first mate and your whatever, your cook and whomever, the guy that swabs the deck is always telling you to go a different direction, you're like, no, like I'm the fucking captain of this boat. Like it goes this direction. like I'll rely on your expertise when it's relevant, but as far as just the course we're charting, like I'm charting this path, right? So, um, I think we're on the same page here, but I kind of wanted to give you
Yeah,
some space to
I
elaborate.
am a big fan of the GM should be using yes, but a lot more than no. But there are sometimes like saying that a GM should never say no is completely ridiculous because of just like you said, when a player goes completely against the rules uh, that are in place of this or in this game for this certain reason. Sometimes because with RPGs, there are some rules that can be bent, that can be broken, but then there's some in there that should just stay solid. There needs to be plenty of those times where the GM is just they need to be able to just say no, that's not going to happen. Or even
It's
if you want to, even in the most fantastic world, if you have nothing that has a rule structure, mechanic bonus, whatever, to keep you from not burning if you fall in lava, you're dead, dude.
yeah,
It's like, oh well, don't I get a saving throw? No,
of
you fell
lava.
into the lava.
No, a whole building fell on you.
Yeah,
Like you're just dead. Like I
yeah,
don't. You shouldn't have been under the building. You saw it was getting pushed over. You had an opportunity to save yourself before this happened.
yeah. I want to
Yeah,
tame. I want to tame this buffalo. Right now, no, that's not going to
yeah,
work.
right. And I'm with you. So that doesn't come up often. I think that if anything, the alternative is, or I should say, not the alternative, the inverse is true. Players often don't have a boundless imagination. You have to like really hold their hand for like, no, dude, you can try like almost anything you fucking want.
Hmm.
There's gonna be consequences to whatever it is you do, but it doesn't mean you can't do anything. And most players are like, well, like, but like, what can I, like, how, what do I do? And you're just like, it's hardly ever that a player is like, um, you want to see me throw this football over those mountains? Like
Yeah,
they, they don't think that way. Like I'm gonna jump over this 400-foot chasm.
yeah.
If I get a 20, I'll make it, right? And you're like, no, you won't
No,
make it. You're never
no.
gonna make it. But
I got a rope.
that player is so rare to just be like, I'm gonna throw this football over those mountains. Like they don't think that way. They think the
Yeah,
opposite way. But in the off chance that they do, like if I get a 20, like it's like you don't have a 1 in 20 chance of lifting up an elephant, right? Like
yeah,
that's not a thing that you're ever gonna do, like under normal circumstances, without some sort of magical aid or gauntlets of ogre power
yeah.
or something like that.
Or you're playing a
Like
superhero game.
right, exactly. It's like so yeah. Sometimes the answer just needs to be no or yes, but there will be consequences, right?
Yeah.
Can I grab him out from under the fire? Yeah, you can reach into the lava and grab him, but that's gonna hurt. Like you're gonna take a lot of damage. It might kill you.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, isn't there a way to do it without that? Like, no, no, it's
No, it's
lava. Like,
I
you,
don't.
you ever
I
you ever
love
see
that.
those like footage of the volcanoes erupting and all of the people are like running, screaming out of the village? There's a reason for that,
Hmm.
right? It's not because they could go, maybe I could just hop up on top of it and like wade through it and be okay. It's like, no, it's gonna kill you if it touches you.
It makes me think. I played in a God, what was it? It was a fantasy age game at Gen Con. But they weren't. It wasn't fantasy age. I think it might have been Dragon Age or something. But either way,
Titan's
the bad
Grave?
guy was that.
Titan's Grave?
No, it wasn't Titan's Grave. It was It was either fantasy age, just regular fantasy age, or Dragon Age. But either
Hmm.
way, because it was I remember the 3D6, and it wasn't GURPS, so it had to be fantasy age. But there was a part there where the bad guy, we were fighting the bad guy, and there was pools of acid everywhere. And the GM at the time was talking about, with us just breathing in some of the fumes of the acid, it was doing damage to us. And one of the guys, is just like, there's a large pool of acid between you and the bad guy. And if you do this, you might fall in. And he's just like, okay, well, how much damage would I take if I fall in the acid? He was just like, no, this is very potent acid. You would just disintegrate. And he's just like, but if I rolled to hold my breath, could I
Yeah,
get a chance to like
The
get to
issue
the
is
other
that you
side?
would breathe the acid in. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
And he's just like, it's not about breathing. It's as soon as it makes contact with your body, you'll die. It's like, but what if it was just like real quick, like in and out? Like if I just jumped and I grabbed and I got out, he's just like, no, dude, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that.
What if I just really quickly ran in front of a cannonball, but I got out of the way really quickly?
Mhm.
I mean, it'd be okay, right? If it just clipped me or something, I would, like, might have a chance of not getting, like, you know, disemboweled or whatever. Yeah. So I'm with you fully. Like, there are circumstances where I don't know that I've ever heard anyone say that a good GM never says no, but I've certainly heard and read that basically the notion that a good GM should encourage this, you know, should be open to basically all cases that could
Yeah.
be made for a particular course of action, and you just have to accept that again some players will try to just test that fence, and if they do, they'll just be always kind of negotiating with you, and if you think that players won't cite precedent, well, before, like, I did this and it didn't, and I don't really see how this is any different, and then they'll just push it a little further, and then one day you look back at the rule and you're like, how did we get here? And you're like, just like an incremental fucking, like, someone pushing the fence where it's like, yeah, now you can jump across 100-foot chasm because why not? You know, like,
Oh, it was, what if I took off my armor? Would I live? That's what it was. He wanted to jump into the pool to get to the other side, and he thought because his armor would weigh him down, that's why he would melt, because it took too long. But if he took off his armor, he'd be quicker. He wouldn't
Yes.
sink to the bottom.
but there would also be more exposure to the acid
Yeah. I know.
quicker. Like, sure. Like, I guess.
All right.
Anyway.
That's going to bring us to the end of this episode. Yes, we will save tools for next week, possibly.
Yeah, sounds good.
But for any of you out there, what are some other myths that you've heard? Send it to insidethegmstudio@gmail.com and let us know. Any other kind of myths that we should know about, that we should look into, that we should debunk? I like debunking stuff. Send it in. Talk to us. Let us know. Or is there any other topic that you want us to talk about, rant, rave about? We'd like to talk about this stuff. Send it to insidethegmstudio@gmail.com. Or you can always come and watch us live, usually every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/InsideTheGMStudio or at youtube.com/InsideTheGMStudio. Come watch us live, talk in the chat, give us some other shit to talk about. But for this week, for Inside the GM Studio, I've been your host, Matt.
And I am David.
Good night.